There's been a lot of talk of the KIRCHHOFF EQ recently, and to this day, my in-depth review of its features I released a couple of months ago is still my best performing video of this year. Personally, I've been using it a lot since I got it, but I didn't really dive that much into the analog curves, which is the reason why I've made this video today. This is going to be the first of a running series of videos where I compare the curves to other plugins and look into the possibilities that the KIRCHHOFF can give you over other analog emulations. Now, before I get into the MAAG curves, I will say now that 3Body Technology did sponsor my first video, but these series of videos are genuinely just me sharing my geeky experimentations, and I have not been asked to make these videos. So first off, I want to look into the KIRCHHOFF's Blue EQ, which is a circuit emulation of the MAAG EQ2, which I genuinely bought a few weeks back using my Plugin Alliance yearly voucher. And I'm very unhappy to tell you that I really didn't need to buy it. Because as I will show you now in plugindoctor, I can match the Brainworx MAAG curves with ease. The KIRCHHOFF Blue EQ has two bands, low and high. As you can see in the low band, all I have to do is match the Q factor of the two bell settings, and once you have that set up, all you genuinely have to do is sweep the frequencies and you will eventually find yourself in an identical match, as the Q factor doesn't change per frequency band. As you can see, the MAAG hardware and Brainworx/UED MAAG plugin have fixed frequency and fixed gain, where the KIRCHHOFF gives you the wide scope of the digital domain, so not only can you match the Q factors and frequencies, you can go one step further and fine tweak the Q of that low band as well as choose any frequency of your choice. With KIRCHHOFF, in theory, we could genuinely match the curves of multiple MAAG EQ hardware units, as we can adapt to any variables in the low band frequency response. In theory, anyway, in theory. Now, if we tackle the high shelf section, which incorporates the now famous 40k airband, you'll notice that we don't have the tweakability of the low band. We can't alter the Q of the shelf, but as you can see at lower gain settings, there is no issue in matching the Brainworx. Now, remember, even though the KIRCHHOFF only goes to 30k, it still gives you the same end result, as remember that the 40k airband isn't about giving you more 40k, as most of us older chaps are lucky if we can hear past 18k. It's more about the specific shape of the shelf in our audible spectrum. So I'm just making this clear in case anybody makes the comment of,
it doesn't go up to 40k, it doesn't go up to 40k.
Now, many of you guys will be screaming at me,
but we could do this with FabFilter. I stuck your settings into Pro Q3 and I can do the exact same thing.
And that is true that lower gain values can be matched. However, the Q factor changes in the MAAG the more that it's boosted. So as you can see, what matches at a lower gain doesn't match at higher gain settings. Now, it can be argued that these curves can be matched by simply adjusting the Q after boosting, but it's not really the point, as being mixers, we want to work as fast as physically possible, and you aren't going to know the exact Q adjustment needed without the MAAG as a comparison. And this is why 3Body Technology coded the Blue EQ curves so that the Q adjusts just like the MAAG hardware. So as you can see, the low boost is bang on, but the high shelf doesn't exactly match the plugin. But we know at the same time that this can easily be a hardware tolerance thing, as there is no way on this planet that Brainworx and KIRCHHOFF would have modelled the exact same MAAG hardware unit. And for those arguing,
well, the KIRCHHOFF doesn't have any modeled noise or harmonics. It's just the curves they've modeled. You would be an idiot to think that it will ever sound like the MAAG plugin.
Well, well, if you actually look into the noise and harmonics of the MAAG plugin, you'll see that it's actually an extremely clean plugin, with there only being noise present in the signal, which, in nearly every setting, falls below our audible threshold. Now, many may look at this doctor test and argue that there seems to be noise or harmonic distortion that creeps into our audible range when the low band is set to sub or 40 Hz. And many may argue that this can result in more perceived weight in the brainworks compared to the KIRCHHOFF. Now, as I have stated in other videos, we should only look at Doctor as a reference and do multiple tests in order to back up what we see in Doctor, as noise in Doctor can be caused by other things. So to test this low build-up we are seeing with the sub and 40 Hz setting, I decided to run 4 sweeps, 3 through the Brainworks MAAG at sub, 40 and 150 Hz, and 1 sweep through the KIRCHHOFF in similar settings. As you can see via iZotope RX, the sweeps are practically identical and show no harmonic content, and also how low the noise floor actually is in the Brainworks. There are extremely minute differences in the KIRCHHOFF and Brainworks, to the point where you would need to look extremely hard. They are there, but very, very, very subtle. But just how audible are these subtle differences in noise floor, and how audible are those very small nuances between the high shelves? To test this, I created a null test using pink noise. To get close settings, I put both plugins through Bertum Curve Analyzer in real time via ddmf meta plugin, and as you can see, the curves look extremely, extremely close with a very small margin of error. So let's measure the null that we get with these settings. And as you can see, the signal drops from the master as soon as I flip the phase. And just to prove that there is no jiggery pokery going on, here is me changing the settings, which obviously affect the null. Now, as you can see, when back in closely matched settings, the null is so quiet that it doesn't even register in U-lean loudness meter, as it can only measure as low as -70 LUFS. Now, just because U-lean isn't measuring anything doesn't mean that it's a full null. Now, I purposely always set my Pro Tools master fader different from default, which I think is -80 dBFS, possibly. I can't remember exactly. But as you can see, there is still a signal coming through very, very slightly, which if we measure on FabFilter Pro Q3, shows us that the main difference between the two is, you guessed it, in that high shelf. From 20 Hz all the way up to about 4 kHz, the signal sits around the -90 dBFS mark, which, let's be honest, nobody is going to hear in solo. I'd say the differences in high end could be argued as audible, but even at around 14 to 15k, the signal still sits at around -75 dBFS and peaks at -70 dBFS at 20k and above, which we can't even hear. So for me personally, I would say that the KIRCHHOFF can definitely get the sound of the Brainworks/UAD MAAG plugin, which is crazy considering that this is simply just an additional option that isn't even used as a big selling point. Knowing that I can get the curves of the MAAG plugin in KIRCHHOFF gives me possibilities that no other MAAG emulation can offer. Imagine being able to dynamically set the airband where it only reacts to the low-end energy of the vocal. Being able to add in that air without the sibilance and use of a de-esser. Even if you didn't want to set the detection of the expansion to the low end and simply boost the shelf as normal, you still don't need a separate de-esser because KIRCHHOFF is a dynamic digital EQ. You can simply set up a separate band, listen for the sibilance in solo, and then dynamically reduce it when it's too much. You could even do both if you wanted. You can even have all of that with the MAAG curves being linear or mixed phase, so your low band would be natural phase to cancel out any pre-ringing, and the air band would be linear phase. So remember guys to like the video if you haven't already, and ensure that you subscribe so you don't miss out on next week's Kirchhoff installment. See you next week.